Hey, I'm Daniel Berger, and this is Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. Welcome to the podcast where Metro New York real estate meets great stories and a douse of humor. Forget the dry sales talk. Here we dive into the fun and unexpected moments of real estate. Join me each week as we explore Westchester, Long Island, the Bronx, and more. You'll hear about the people, the places, and the crazy situations that make this industry so interesting. Thanks to our sponsor, Remax Prestige Properties, we're ready to share the lighter side of real estate. Whether you're a pro, a buyer, or just curious, we've got something for everyone. Ready for today's adventure? Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker with Daniel Berger. I'm Daniel Berger. Today, we have the good fortune of being with Robert Reich, who has 25 plus years of experience helping others in the world of whether it's real estate, title, just really kind of like really as an entrepreneur. Um, Delivering value is something that Robert's very into and understanding how he can do that. And one of the companies that he worked, I saw that a big, I think a company that he sold was solving problems with real solutions. And so who doesn't want to solve problems with real solutions? Because that's the way you solve problems. And so with that, Robert, thank you so much for coming on the show. You've run podcasts yourself in the past, and I thought it would be you're coming all the way from Orlando, Florida, and I just thought it would be great to get you on. So just for us to kind of talk a little bit about what you're seeing in the industry right now and how you're making a part to help people grow people's business. So with that, Robert, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey, Daniel, thanks for having me. I got to say, you pronounced my last name correctly, perfectly. So we're off to a good start. I appreciate it.
So, adding value that's really the name of the game, right? Where in any business, whether it's real estate or a restaurant, right? You want people, you want to work with people and you want to make them better. And that's kind of what you've been doing. So give me, the real estate world's changing a lot. You're also in Florida right now, which is probably you know all markets have ebbs and flows, and so maybe Florida had a little bit more of a boom, maybe it's changing maybe a little bit more to a buyer's market, but everything ebbs and flows are opportunities. So what are you seeing that's out there now? And the people that you're talking with, the plans that you're coming up, what are some of the things that you're working with, to help people get involved in real estate and grow their business?
Yeah, so Florida is, you're right, Daniel. Florida is kind of a unique state when it comes to real estate. Lots of activity going on here. We got a lot, as you guys know, we have lots of people who retire and move to Florida. We've got some who move out, but the influx of new residents is undeniable. So to some degree, we're insulated from the economy that maybe you might experience in New York or in other places. But that doesn't mean completely insulated. So yes, in the last year, it's been awful down here compared to what we're used to. I think in Seminole County, where I live, we were only closing about 300 or 400 deals, transactions a week, which is really off the low. So real estate agents, title agents, loan originators, all scrambling for business. And, while the business was decreasing, the number of agents that we have in the area didn't increase by a lot, but did by some. So it's very competitive in Florida, especially in Central Florida where I live. And so you better come with your A game. And if you don't, if you're just going out there doing what you've always done as a real estate agent, assuming you've been in the business for a while, it may not be successful to you. And you're going to have to, I think you have to think outside the box. Now, we all know rates have just dropped. The market's starting to heat up. There's some optimism coming. Doesn't mean competition is going away. May even become more competitive in all through the country. So again, that A game and maybe doing some things differently is going to be really important.
Just to add on to some of what you're saying, what it's interesting because as the market changes, and it's interesting for me to hear that you actually had a net increase of agents, because ultimately I'm thinking that if I'm representing buyers and sellers, that they're going to want people that are like full time, right? That this is their not a hobbyist, right? A hobbyist is you do 1 to 3 deals a year, but like somebody that is their business. And it seems like Florida, so real estate, obviously, of a job, right, and a profession, it's not so hard to get a license, and it's not so hard to hang your license. So people can try to dabble it. They're teachers, they're police officers, they're firefighters, and yeah, I know somebody I can kind of do it. But really, to be a professional, right? Like I'm not a professional, a professor or a finance person. This is what I do, and so doing 50 plus transactions a year makes me a professional because I'm constantly doing it and constantly seeing what the market is. So you would think that while it might be a little bit tighter, you would think that people like the sellers and buyers would be looking for people that have more activity, not the ones that are just kind of doing one or twosies.
Well, I think for the most part that's true. I'm certainly not going to a part-time heart surgeon if I need a procedure. So, same thing with any complex transaction or anything you can think of. So, yeah, no question, the full-time, experienced, professional real estate agents are much more successful than the ones that aren't. But there are part-timers who are getting in those 1 to 6 deals a year, and they're hanging on, and God bless them. I mean, they serve a purpose. They may be doing more fringe transactions, but they serve their purpose in the market. So listen, as long as they're working hard at whatever they're doing, I'm all for it.
I mean, it's always probably what, like 80-20 rule, right? Where 20% of the
Absolutely.
people are doing 80% of the business. But again, in anything, if there's a 20% of the business, it's not bad to get some of that, right? Because because that's like, the icing on the cake, type of stuff. And sometimes they're big. I also think that Florida might have more agents that are agents in other parts of the country or world, but let's more so in the country. And yet when they summer, they winter in Florida, more people probably try to get a Florida license as a tag-on license so that they can say that they're in New York or Florida or Georgia or Florida or what have you. So some of your part-time agents are probably part-time in the sense at Florida, but maybe they are full-time, but they're just trying to, get those snowbirds and people who might be moving from wherever they are and try to help transact their investment business or their winter rental their winter business. Do you find that to be the case at all?
Yeah, well, some of that, but I'll tell you something else that goes on here is that if you speak Spanish, if your family's from Cuba or Portuguese, if you're from Brazil or some language, you could probably make a pretty good living doing a couple deals a year to people who want to come into the United States and don't yet speak the language or don't speak it very well. So I'm working with a home builder right now who is from Brazil, and she speaks Portuguese, and she markets the homes, the spec homes that she builds internationally, which is I think really cool.
I mean that is we're in a political time right now, but my view is politics are really, it's just kind of like it's out there. Whoever wins, it's still America, and we're still going to be moving on. It's just, it's a little bit on the side, because ultimately, whomever wins, people are going to still want to come, to our country from around the world. Like you said, this is a haven for people and all, for money all around the world. Where you're in Orlando. Well, Disney certainly has put a pin in Orlando, and that's a family destination. It's more than a family destination, but at least that solidifies that everyone with a family wants to go there at some point, right? Because
Absolutely.
it's one of the greatest places on earth, right? So
Absolutely.
and and when you talk about Florida as a state, it's such a big state with, multiple different types of weather. You have the East Coast, the South, the West Coast, the Panhandle. So, Central Florida. So it's so broad, right? Saying Florida, it's you can't just peg Florida as one economy or one anything because it means so much to so many different people.
Absolutely. So Palm Beach County, very different from Central Florida. Dade County, where Miami is, very different. If you go down to the Keys, even it's like the Keys are like a whole new country when you go down there. At least it kind of feels that way, and I mean that in a very positive way. And then you've got the Big Bend, the Panhandle, very very different. So yeah, we are sort of we've got micro economies that make up the macro of Florida for sure. And you got to know your stuff. If you're a real estate agent here, it's very difficult to do business outside of your local geography. So, and conversely, if you are very well versed in, let's say, what's going on in Central Florida, the communities, what's to do, where to live, the traffic, you can never ignore the traffic. And the restaurants and the rest of it, you can really help somebody find a place that suits them, because on the east side of Orlando may not suit somebody who is really maybe better off living on the west side of Orlando, or north or south. It doesn't really matter.
Right. Oh, it's always right. Information it's so important, and being so I always talk about being a connector. So in the real estate world, and that's kind of what you're doing, right? Is you're connecting. In the past, you've done stuff with the title people, the real estate agents, is you have your information and you have systems that can help people become better business people. And so how do you connect, these people to this people, and then that makes you look more professional and better. And so it's very similar. So, having, not that we have Rolodexes now, I guess we have it in our phones, or
Mhm.
having it in your head, but
Right.
knowing when things come up, knowing the right people to bring in the experts. Like I know that I'm good at what I'm good at, but what I'm also really good at is finding the right people, because I'm not going to try to go too thin. Um, I rather bring somebody else in who can help, make a transaction be more professional. And so that's kind of what's important. What are some of the problems that you're seeing? You're moving now more into the agent side right now. From like looking at what's, how to improve their business, how to help agents with their social media, because people that aren't in real estate really feel social media is great when you get on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all the LinkedIn and all those things, but social media means a lot more in the real estate world, right? Because it's no longer like 20 years ago, where if you wanted a piece of real estate, you would have to go to a brick and mortar building, a retail store, and you sit down, you'd open up a book, and there'd be like, oh, here's all here's all the printouts of the houses, and the keys would be inside, right?
Right.
So by the time clients actually call us now, they've already looked at 100 houses online and they
Right.
already have an idea. So,
Right.
what are some of the things, how you're solving problems and making real solutions for the people in your market?
Yeah, so when I first came into the real estate industry, I did it as a technology vendor. I created some technologies that were for title agents as our customers, but to benefit the real estate agent. And one of the things immediately that I learned was that real estate agents got very little repeat business. And so and that's still true today. It may be getting a little bit better, but I can tell you that realtors tell me all the time that when they finally get around to calling their past clients on the phone and checking in with them, they're shocked to find out how many have already moved into another home because they didn't stay connected post closing. So staying connected to your clients after the sale is huge, because every time you leave business on the table if they go somewhere else. And there's an interesting stat from NAR. I haven't read it lately, but basically it goes like this: that 90% or so of homeowners would do business with their real estate agent again, but only about 10% can remember who they were. which is shocking to me. Real estate is very much, as you and I were talking, very much a relationship business. And to lose contact with these people that you worked so hard to find them in the first place, to get them into the right home or sell their home, to help them with the most probably most complex transaction of their life, and then to let them go just doesn't make sense. So I still work with agents on that. But today in 2024, we also want to get the new deals coming in the door. And LinkedIn to me is the platform for it. I don't think, in my opinion, that Instagram, which is great, that TikTok or even Twitter, X.com, is as powerful in this scenario as LinkedIn is. And so when you, as a realtor, if you tightly define what your niche market is, who do you want to sell to? Is it seniors? Is it out-of-state owners? Is it landlords? Is it C-suite executives? Is it up-and-coming executives? Or is it something else? Maybe it's the blue collar folks who work hard, make a very decent living and do move a couple times a year, or they get transferred. So once you define your niche, and let me be clear, in my opinion, real estate professionals throw too wide of a net just looking for their next deal. They're going to be much better served niching down to a target audience. And then once you can do that, man, you can be in front of them every day, even sometimes multiple times a day through LinkedIn. So let's just say it was C-suite executives. The ability for you to go into LinkedIn, and I use a part of LinkedIn called Sales Navigator, where I can search and find every C-suite executive, for instance, in Central Florida. I can tightly define it by Seminole County, which is North Orlando, Orange County, which is inside of Orlando. I can find and connect to these people quickly and easily. Now, how you connect to them, Daniel, is really important. We can talk about that, but you can't these days. Once you niche down, if you really want to gain these people trust, don't sell to them. If you're throwing out your listings there, if you're talking about the deal you just closed, if you send a link to an article about remodeling your house or maybe how to get your house ready for sale, it's not going to drive the value to these people that they really want and need. So first, you've got to win their trust by providing real value in the contact and the context of the communications that you have. And that takes time. So you got to play the long game a little bit, and then you can win their trust. And I talk a lot about content generation on LinkedIn because it's really important to get that right to the target audience. And it takes time. It might take 3 to 6 months to a year, but once you get over that hurdle, however long it takes, and you start earning the trust of these people, and they'll start talking about you in a positive way, everything changes. Everything changes.
And I think also what's important is that you have to determine what business makes sense for you, if you're going for a niche market, what niche market makes sense based on who you are and what your experiences are,
Yeah.
right? Because if you're a 24-year-old just out of college
Right.
and you're trying to go to senior level, C-suite people, well, it's a conflict because it makes no sense, right?
Yeah.
So everyone has a life history of industries they've been in. So for me, I've been in the beverage world for over 20 years. So maybe then I try to focus on C-suite people in the beverage world because that would be something that I would have some form of commonality, and then try to drill down. And I think what you're saying to me makes sense, where you don't you can't be all things to all people, but also, you need to target things and try things, right? So I could still be doing my normal, lead generation ideas and all the different things that I'm doing. But like if I'm like, okay, I'm going to work on LinkedIn and I'm going to try that this is the niche I want to want, and I build a plan for that, because ultimately, right, why wouldn't I want to try and start and build something for a select group of people, which would be an extension of my business, right? So it basically makes me better because I'm reaching more people, and I'm talking. You got to talk in the lingo that they want to hear and that makes sense to them as well.
Yeah, if I was a new agent today in my 20s, I would probably target young professionals, be they attorneys that just passed the bar or doctors that just got their license to practice and are now going into the hospital or into private practice. And there's all kinds of other executives who are working their way up. And what's wrong with selling, someone who's new in their career a three or four or $500,000 home and staying with them as they buy the next home and the next home and the next home. And usually they buy bigger and bigger homes until one day they downsize. But that's I think worth its weight in gold, that you are beginning a relationship with them at the right time. But you don't want to go to them again. Let me make the point here. Don't call up doctors or text, or excuse me, DM attorneys and say, I'm a real estate agent, I can help you. They don't want to hear that. They want to know what you know about the market, and they want you to tell them in drips and drabs over time. They need some time to get to know you through the platform. I like, again, I like LinkedIn. And if you do it, if you commit to it, if your content is regular, you have good cadence, if it's value driven, and you stay with it, they begin to trust you and believe you, that you're not, some persons that's going to be here today and gone tomorrow. You will be at the top of the game. I promise.
What's interesting also is when you talked about like, oh, low end purchases. Well, you know what? Even it might be a step back. It might be rentals, right? Where,
Sure.
maybe it's four or five, $3,000 to $6,000 rentals as just an example, because you know what? Get them when they're getting their, they just got out of school. They're starting their first job. They need a one bedroom, a two bedroom. And then you're really starting with them on their journey, right? And then help it. And then, you might make less on that, but then you might help their friends. And then you know what? A parent might need something. A parent might need to downsize. So I have some interesting stories of some of my clients now where I've been working with a younger they're 30 or whatever, but they've been trying for maybe 2 years now to get a house, and they haven't been able to, but they keep referring people to me. And the funny thing is one of those people, the last two referrals they've given me, I've shown each of the two, one place, one offer, one contract, and we're about to close on two people
Fantastic.
simultaneously.
Fantastic.
So
That's great.
right. So with them, it's 40 plus houses over 2 years, but because you can't rush it, right?
Yes,
Everyone has a different budget, everyone has different tolerances, everyone has different needs. And
absolutely.
so right? Like people were like, "Aren't you going to get sick?" My record is 205 houses over 13 months, and people were like, "Why are you still with them?" I'm like, "Why would I fire them?" They ended up buying something for like 1.2 million all cash. They've referred multiple people to me, and they're the greatest people on social media, always saying how great I am. And I'm like, why would it turned out, I think I did the math. It was like $100 per showing, right? That's probably what I made. I have no like, and again, $100 per showing, I think, is actually really good. But even if it was $25 a showing, you know what? It's not about you. You talked about it. It's about the long term and the end game. And don't do something for a transaction today. I'm really trying to do something 3, 5, and 10 years out, because if that's what is in your head, the short-term business is going to happen, and those long-term, because like you said, I don't want to have it where 80% of my clients, if I'm now doing 50 deals a year and I'm now 8 years in or 10 years in, I don't want to lose. I only want, I want to get all of them or as many of those people in their repeat business as possible. The only way to do that is to stay, you know, top of mind, and to know that I'm still out here, I'm doing stuff, and I'm adding value.
Absolutely. But the game has changed. It is changing. Cold outreach, cold calls really don't work anymore. I get spam calls on my cell phone all the time. I now, obviously it says spam on it. Or sometimes if it doesn't, I pick it up and I can tell on the other end that it's a call center calling me. I won't take those
Click.
calls anymore.
Ex-
And
ex- yeah.
you can even hear the noise of the call center in the background. So, you know what they say, what's old is new again, Daniel. I've gone back personally, I've gone back to handwriting thank you notes to our realtors who close with us and to their clients saying, hey, just a simple thank you. We really appreciate you. If you need us again, we're here. And that's not my only outreach to them post closing, but I have gone back to that old way of doing business. And then, not to harp on it, but then LinkedIn is, whether they're your clients, future clients or past clients, you send these messages out. And so for your audience, I would say go to Gary Vaynerchuk's LinkedIn profile and look at his post. Vaynerchuk is V as in Victor, Ayner, Chuck. And see what he's saying and see what he posts. Don't take my word for it. Go to Alex Hormozy. Go to there's a ton of them out there. Go find Dean Seddon. He's a guy out of Europe that I know. 77,000, 80,000 LinkedIn connections, something crazy. I would have been there today if I hadn't given up my first LinkedIn account when I sold my company, but now I'm starting from scratch again. But these people know and are preaching to every industry. You cannot be selling to these people especially when they don't know you. They will not read your stuff. They will not care about your stuff. You won't get the likes, the comments, the reshares that you want to get. But when you're telling them something that they want to know and need to know, you're driving that value to them. They will engage with you, and it gets really good when they start asking you questions on the platform, like, how do I handle this, or rates are this way, or rates are that way. I need to refi. Maybe they'll ask you a refi question. Who knows? I've got credit card debt. I want to take my equity and use it somewhere else. They'll start asking you these questions after you earn their trust.
I, you know, I'm in sales and marketing, so you saying the word selling doesn't offend me. I don't sell though. That's not what I do, right? I'm here to help people with real estate needs, right? They need to buy something, sell something, rent something, right? Invest in something. So come to me. We will give me what you need to do, and we'll come up with a strategy to help you do what you want to do. It's not selling. Clearly you can come work with anyone you want, right? Working with me is me, right? I don't have transaction coordinators. It's me, right? So are there people better than me? Absolutely, there are people better than me. There are also people that are worse than me, but it's me. And so that's kind of why, like, when my family's like, why are you doing a podcast? I go, why not do a podcast? Because it's an outreach to a different group of people. I'm now talking, multiple times with people like yourself from Florida, from Hawaii, from all over, right? I'm learning too, because I'm learning about different markets. And you know what? I might now have someone that says, "Oh, I want to buy something in Orlando," and I'm like, "I'm going to call Robert." Robert was on my, and like, we had a nice chat, whatever. I know what
Right.
he's talking about. Help me out with this. So it's not selling. It's connecting people, and I'm never going to tell someone. Selling would be me forcing someone to say, you need an investment and you need to buy this multifamily. But I'm only there when they've already come up with it. Okay, does it make sense? Do we have the financing for it? What can we get in your budget? Does it make sense? Or who's going to be the property man? So it's not selling. It's really having conversations to make sure, like, that the people that we're connecting are making decisions that make sense for them, right? So in essence, I don't door knock, I don't do any cold calling either. It's
Right.
just trying to put myself out there and having conversations so that when people are ready to make decisions or at least investigate, that I can be there and have conversations.
Yeah, anytime you can tell somebody something that they don't know and they find it valuable, you win. And that's really how you measure it. And so it's difficult, right? Especially if your target audience is very broad, it's different demographics and different geographies and different walks of life. It's very hard to sense all those people a message that is valuable, that they'll find valuable. But if you can establish that niche in your own mind, let's just say it's doctors in practice They've been in at least practice at least 10 years and less than 20. That's a pretty small niche. It's a pretty good one, in fact. Then you can start talking to them about through the various platforms about things that they might want to know. If that, what's the price per square foot of homes in an area? That's not selling to them. That's giving them information. What are homes at the beach going for? If they want a second home, or if they want to go move to a golf community, talk about the various options that are out there for them. And I got to tell you, video is fantastic. So podcast, what you're doing, Daniel, if we can package all that information up and deliver value through a podcast, through video, that to me is the best thing. Posts are also very, very good. But podcasts or other videos, even if it's a selfie video, it's extremely good. There's a broker that while he is selling, I got to say he's in New York, and he does these fantastic selfie videos walking around the house that he got a listing, or the apartment he got a listing on. But he's so damn entertaining that you excuse him for kind of being salesy. But he's super energetic. It's like you can't turn the knob. You don't change the channel. And so he's an exception, but he's working so hard, and you can tell, to bring information to people. And it is a little salesy, but you don't mind it. But for everybody else, listen, there are lots of things you can talk about. And I get a lot of my inspiration using ChatGPT. Now, ChatGPT does not write my posts, but it will write my ideas. So I might say to ChatGPT, hey, what are 5 things that I can write about today, given the fact that interest rates have gone down, that the market's ticking up, that I'm in a highly competitive area, that we've got all these different micro communities and different walks of life. And I just ask it to give me some ideas from which I will then go write a post.
I mean, there is nothing wrong with any AI to assist in developing. So
Right.
many of my listings, I'll throw in, oh, 4 bed, 3 bath, this community pool.
Yep.
I actually throw that in because I want to see what it spits out. And then it spits it out. I'm like, okay, now I got something to work with, and now I can
Yep.
work and edit it. Right. So it's always mine. But why wouldn't I do that? Because, when you start, sometimes there's writer's block, right? You have you're trying to
Sure.
make it maybe a little different than other ones you've done, and so there's that is just, some people have an administrative assistant. Why would you need that these days when you can have this computer basically, searching the internet to help you come up with words to do that? So I'm doing the blog, or not the blog, but the podcast, and I'm also writing a book because crazy stuff has happened in my 8 or 9 years as a real estate agent. That's the whole idea of adventures of a real estate broker. Getting to listings where there's decapitated skulls, or a mess and guns and pornography. And what is this? What's the story behind that? And how do you work with the families of cleaning that up? Yeah, that was an uncle. I didn't know the uncle, and so there's a lot of different stories. So that's kind of like the genesis of it. And my wife again was like, well, who's going to read your book? And I go, I don't know, but it's still, and what's interesting is when you talked about how do you connect with people, and that 80% of the agents would work with you, but they don't remember who you are. Well, if you have a book and that closing, you're like, oh, here's a fun book of some crazy stories that happened to me on the way to a closing table. And
Mhm.
so it
Yes.
means nothing, but it's something, and it's something that I can leave behind. And again, it's not selling, right? It's just saying, oh, this is kind of fun stuff. And so it's interesting because I'm now maybe 8 or 9 chapters into writing it. Um, but it includes my clients. I have clients who are like, please write what happened to me. That was fun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
so by
Stories
getting
are stories are a great way to get messages to people without selling. I think that's brilliant on your part. Every transaction an agent does is a story. Now, some are more interesting than the others, but you have maybe the family story, or the kids, or you've got the pets, the animals, the house. Maybe the house was haunted, or might have been haunted. Whatever. If you document your life as a professional, and to some degree as a person, right? People want to hear about you as a person. So, there's a technique in writing posts where you actually sort of bear all and tell all and say, listen, I lost it all. I had to live in my mom's basement, and I started, I changed the way I was working, and now I'm, doing 20 homes a month or whatever it is. We all have stories of stops and starts, of trials and tribulations, of unique closings. Document that what you're doing for your book. That's phenomenal. And you can, if you wanted to write a book, a great way to sort of get feedback on the book as you're writing is post some chapters or some parts of the chapters.
Well,
Hey,
I have like
you
my
do
eight
that?
or nine chapters. I've sent them out to people, and they're like,
Yeah,
"That's interesting." I want,
sure.
and so my wife's like, "Well, who's going to read the book? You're already sharing it." I'm like, "That's not what it's
put
about."
put it on
So
Amazon. They'll all buy it. I'm
it that
sure,
right,
Daniel.
but getting the stories out there is important. I think
Absolutely.
also, you know, social media is so important, and many times in our business, agents are writing, you know, they pump their chest too much. They say, "Oh, I sold a house and my listing was 200. I sold it for $250,000 over list." And all I could think about is, well, you didn't price the house right, because why is it two hundred and fifty thousand
Yeah,
dollars?
right.
Or you're saying that somebody overpaid for something. Like you're almost
Yeah,
mocking the people that buy it. So
yeah.
I, and what's interesting is I've always made a conscious effort to thank everyone in my posts. I thank the buyers if I'm the listing agent, thank the buyer's agent, thank the inspectors, thank the lawyers, and I'll tag them, and thank to the lender, and thank to the clients. And so it's
Absolutely.
all about how we all together came together to make a transaction happen, that we had happy sellers, happy buyers, but not to like stick out your chest and say, this, look how great I am, because
Right.
I don't think people, my view is that people really don't want to see that, and it's obnoxious. So while I am in an industry that people do that, I I like breaking the mold. So I want to be different, and like I can only be the best Daniel Berger that I can be, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I don't need to impress and be somebody else. I'm not wearing a suit from the podcast because that's
Mhm.
not me.
Right.
Ultimately, I want to find people that feel that I'm genuine and that I'm solutions based. And so you certainly seen that, like the people in your 24 plus years, have seen that you're intelligent, using analytics to try to help drive growth is certainly something that many people can't do, because they don't have the skill set, but you've been able to understand how technology can help people, because ultimately we are in a people business. Technology supports us, right? Because that's why I'm not really worried about bots and AI doing these things. Our jobs are too different and needing of somebody's brain to be able to make transactions happen. So while somebody can clearly open a door, being the door opener is not why I get paid. It's to keep the deal together and to make sure that my whoever my clients are protected in the transaction.
I have been the guy. So I'm not a technology guy that got into sales and marketing. I'm a sales and marketing guy that got into technology. And I'm really, as you can maybe get a sense now, AI is really the thing that's attracting my attention lately. But I've always been that guy that never wanted to sell anything to somebody. I wanted to solve a problem. And if I could really solve a significant problem for them, and it might be a small one, maybe in conversation, but it's a big deal to them. I mean, that to me was the reward. It wasn't the commission, although we all work for money, there's no question. But I wanted to be that person that they bragged about. Hey, this guy figured this out when nobody else could, or this guy came with a solution that nobody else could figure out, or that we couldn't figure out. And if I can do that with social media, if I can do it with other forms of technology, AI or anything else, I mean, at the end of the day, it makes what you're doing worth it. It makes what I'm doing worth it. And that's why I tell people I'm going to deliver value to you, whether you use my services as a title agency or not. I'm going to continue delivering value. Hopefully you will, but if you don't, and you call me up the phone and say, hey, how do I maximize my LinkedIn profile? We're going to sit down, I'll roll my shirt sleeves up, and I'm going to help you, no strings attached. That's what it is.
And that's, we're in it for the long term. Obviously we only go through this world once. At least that's what I think. But maybe it's more than that. But ultimately, you just got to be the best. You got to be the best, Robert. I got to be the best, Daniel, and we just got to
Yeah,
make it happen. And
100%.
why not go through it with pleasant experiences, right? Where we're trying to help people. So we're lucky that we're in a world that, um, you know, people can be happy from transactions, especially if we're giving them the proper knowledge and eyes wide open, right? So that's what people hate the most, is when their surprises happen. And clearly in investing, things happen that we don't know about. But but the more that we communicate that things can happen, and then but we're there to support them when they do happen, that's kind of what people are expecting from us. And like you said, it's not selling, it's really, solving problems with solutions, and then hoping that those people are satisfied, so when they have um, other problems in the future, they'll ask us to help them, and they'll also, have their friends, family, and contacts connect with us. So that's what it's all about. So, but Robert, thank you so much for coming on the podcast this week. It's always good to hear people around the country, and seems like you know what you're doing. You're bringing your experience of all the years to add value, right? Not, um, obviously there's money with that, but it's less selling, it's more adding value. And so it's Daniel Berger with another episode of the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. And again, Robert, thank you very much for coming on,
My
and
pleasure.
everyone's appreciated having you.
Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining me on the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker. I hope you enjoyed our time together as much as I did. If you laughed, learned something, or just had a good time, do yourself a favor and subscribe to the podcast. A big shout out to our sponsor, RE/MAX Prestige Properties, for making this all possible. Remember to leave a review if you enjoyed the show. It helps more people find us. Until next time, keep it real, keep it fun, and keep exploring the adventures in your neighborhood. I'm Daniel Berger, your New York Realtor, and I'll see you in the next episode.